In Karakum card game, you will play as a caravan master, gathering different resources and spending these resources to buy camels. Each camel gives the player victory points, and at the end of the game, the player with the most victory points is the winner. Setup. Each player takes a Caravan Master card and places it in front of them. Take all the camel cards, shuffle them, remove 12 random camels if playing with 2 players, 8 random camels if playing with 3 players, but keep all the camels if playing with 4 players. Then, place the camel deck in the middle of the playing area and reveal top 5 camel cards. This is called the market. Take all the resource cards, shuffle them, and deal out 5 cards to each player. Then, place the resource deck below the camel deck and reveal top 5 resource cards face up in a row. That completes the setup for the game. Gameplay. The youngest player takes the first turn. Then, the game proceeds with the players taking turns in clockwise order. On each of their turns, the player has to take one of the 2 possible actions: gather resources or buy a camel. Gather resources. Resource cards are divided into 2 types: goods and gold cards. A player can take 2 face-up goods cards, 2 face-down cards, or 1 of each. If a face-up card is drawn, immediately replace it with a new one from the resource deck. If a player takes a face-up gold card, that is the only card that a player may take. But if a player gets a gold card while taking cards from the resource deck, they may still take their second card as long as it is not a face-up gold card. Sometimes you get lucky, even in the desert. There is no limit to how many resource cards a player can have in their hands. Buy a camel. If a player chooses to buy a camel, that player must discard goods cards matching the cost of the camel. For example, to buy this value 3 blue camel, the player would have to pay 3 blue jewelry cards. During the game, some camel cards will have an additional cost of 1 good. The additional cost is determined by the color of the camel card right next to the camel deck. Let's look at the previous example. But now the first camel card in the marker is blue. The player would not be able to buy the same camel as that player wanted previously, as it right now costs 4 blue jewelry instead of 3. Slightly slide up the first camel of the market and camels of matching color, so it's easier to recognize the ones with the extra cost. Gold is a special kind of resource that can be used as any goods card. And 2 of the same type of goods can also be used as any goods card. For example, to buy the same 3-value blue camel card with the increased cost, the player would have to pay either 3 blue jewelry cards and 1 gold card, or 3 blue jewelry cards and 2 purple silk cards. Camel Caravan. After buying a camel card, the player must immediately add it to their caravan to the right of their Caravan Master or previously purchased camel cards. Camels must be of the same color or the same number as the previous camel. If the purchased camel doesn't match the color or the number of the previous camel, then it must be placed to the left of the Caravan Master card. These camels will score half of their points at the end of the game. But don't worry, as soon as these camels can be added to the caravan, the player must do so. For example, after buying this blue camel with a value 1, the player can move his value 3 blue camel to the caravan, behind the value 1 camel, and now it will score full points at the end of the game. Speaking of the value 1 camels, whenever a player buys a value 1 camel card, the player gets to take a free resource card and add it to their hand. A player can take a resource card from the deck or any card from face-up ones, drawing and replacing that card afterwards. Yes, even the gold card can be taken this way. End of the game. If at the end of a player's turn, the market cannot be refilled with a new camel card, the game ends and players proceed to scoring. Each player counts together the points of the camel cards in their caravans, and then adds half of the points from camel cards to the left of the caravan master. The player with the most points wins. In the event of a the player with the longest caravan wins the game. If there is still a tie, then the tied players share the victory.